Okay, I have 10:03, so we're going to get started, everyone. Thank you so much for those of you that are with us this morning. As I look through the list of participants, our attendees, just so excited to see so many of our friends here, and just want to welcome you and want to thank everybody for being here, especially Anne-Marie and Jim and the rest of the ArtPride staff that are all on the call. So I know many of you have been with us before, you know the drill, but if you haven't been on one of our COVID webinars before, we encourage you to use the questions and answers feature at the bottom to submit your questions. It's certainly the easiest way for us to sort through them and make sure we get you answers, whether it's answering them live here in the webinar or directly via message, or following up after the webinar. We also want you to pay attention to the chat feature at the bottom. Sometimes we'll stick a URL in there if it's something that we want to share, but we also want to remind everybody that we do record these and we will put them up on our website. So if you ever have a piece of information that you need to go back and find, you can certainly find that on ArtPride's website, usually up later in the day today. And we don't plan to have any polls, but we do have that poll feature. So if that pops up, we always love it when you participate there. And with that, we're going to try and keep it tight today. And I'll pass it over to you, Anne-Marie. For those of you that don't know Anne-Marie is ArtPride's Director of Advocacy and Public Policy, but I can't imagine there's a single person on this call that doesn't know you, Anne-Marie.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Thanks, Adam. I really appreciate the team helping on this webinar, because I had to do one yesterday where I was in control of screen sharing, admitting people in, doing the poll, and monitoring the chat box. And it was like so much work for one person to do, so I really, really appreciate the help. So welcome, everybody. The highlight of this week is, of course, that the State Arts Council approved $16.3 million in grants. And we're relieved that the appropriation held into the FY21 budget to increase funding by $3.858 million. Everybody, I'm sure, has already received their contracts, or at least the notices of their contracts. There's a note at the bottom that while the majority of the funding was voted out on Tuesday, the actual it's not 3.858 but 3.3 million will be granted out as part of a new COVID critical needs grant programs for artists and organizations. So I look for information on that coming up in the next few weeks. So this was an opportunity, and this should go pretty fast today, but there's opportunity for us to reveal some of the information. We did a recent survey that 238 organizations participated in, and we're very grateful for their participation. It was a collaborative survey. We really tried hard to collaborate on this so that folks would understand that we're not going to keep asking them the same questions over and over again about COVID impact, because not only is everyone tired of surveys, but this is difficult information to relay. So our partners on this were the State Arts Council, the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation, Dance New Jersey, the New Jersey Theater Alliance, and South Jersey Cultural Alliance. So what did it tell us? It told us that the reported loss due to postponements, cancellations, and other revenue losses was over $100 million. That's not a big surprise, and it's probably a low estimate. You might remember the very first survey that was done back at the end of March or beginning of April estimated $30 million loss, 25 by arts organizations and 5 by individual artists. We've yet to do the individual artist survey. This is the response from organizations. So again, 239 responses. What we also learned is that over 25% of the organizations are not sure if they're going to survive this crisis into the next fiscal year. That's a lot. And that in order to get through to the end of this calendar year, $8 million is needed to continue operations. These are all sort of grim stats, not fun stats. This gives you an idea of who responded, where the organizations, what type of organizations they are. No surprises on this either. This is very similar to the data that we received back in March. And actually, the number of organizations that responded back at the end of March was 289. So it's a fairly comparative set of data. This is where those organizations come from, where they reside, and no big smack in the face news here. Although it's kind of interesting to see Union County have such significant response. For me, that was kind of interesting. That was the only slight surprise. So we asked folks, what else would you like to share? And they were very generous. We did just a word cloud of what the words were that came up. And many of these words, needed work, staff, grants, support, programming. These are the types of things that we would expect to hear. Again, no surprises. There were some anecdotes that were interesting, about reopening. I'll give you a few seconds to just sort of look this over. There were lots of anecdotes, but the ability to pay rent is an issue. The ability to have rehearsal space because of fear of liability issues, and then a lot of times when we talk about furloughing employees and losing employees, a lot of times the very small organizations that don't have permanent staff are not counted. And actually, one point I forgot to include in here is that about 10% of the workforce was furloughed or laid off. And that was about 2,000 employees, a little bit over 2,000 employees. And if we look at, a workforce that we base our annual analysis on over 22,000 employees, that gives you a little bit of context. And that also feels very low. And we think that the reason for that is that, folks are being preserved to some degree through PPP, and that when the PPP runs out, if it's not already run out, that number was going to jump probably after December 31st. So I don't anticipate another survey, but these are some of the highlights. So so what are we doing now? What is ArtPride? The Arts Council grants have been awarded. So what are we working on now? We are trying desperately to get CARES dedicated support for arts and culture, CARES dollars from the very first stimulus bill. Let's see, here's what we know. And this is the data that we use when we're trying to make the case for dedicated arts and culture support. So it's happening in other states across the nation. And while there has been significant funding, the most recent of which was the $100 million to the EDA for small businesses. And I'll talk just a little bit about that. The arts and culture have been included with all small businesses and nonprofits and not pulled out as a sector by itself. This most recent $100 million that was offered had $33 million in it for restaurants. And so we're looking to see if we can find specific dollars for arts and culture. There have been several bills, and I think we'll get into that in a minute, that legislate additional funding for arts and culture, but the legislation piece is taking a long time to move through. And for the most part, CARES dollars from this first stimulus they have to be allocated and prescribed by December 31st. So we're running out of time, which is why we're working really hard on this. Before we get into this executive order, I just want you to know that the New Jersey Arts and Culture Recovery Working Group and the appointed group by the governor are working very hard on trying to get that CARES funding. Allison Tratner has been working hard on this as well with Ebby Colbert, who has been an outstanding advocate appointed by the governor on the commission, the larger commission, to really make a case for arts and culture and additional support. So we're trying real hard. This executive order just happened yesterday, maybe day before, which really provides the standards for COVID-related health policy practices in the workplace. So this is effective at 6 o'clock in the morning on November 5th. And if you need more information, it'll be in the slideshow afterwards if you want to just pull this out. But it basically gives you some guidelines. And many arts organizations that are already starting to go back to work are implementing most of these guidelines as well. But this executive order just took place. Along with, on the 29th, which I guess was yesterday, this discounted PPE access program for small and micro businesses was also just launched by the NJEDA. So there's more information. The online tool is available at the URL at the bottom of that third bullet point there to be able to access this on the state COVID-19 page. I do want to say that the NJEDA has been very responsive and as well as the governor, to the idea that there should be some funding, going back to the previous slide, for arts and culture. Many of you know that out of this $100 million that was recently announced, that the NJEDA did a specific webinar on Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. To make sure that arts organizations knew how to get into the pre-registration process, which ended on Tuesday of this week. We're hoping that the NJEDA will be able to offer some data as to how many applicants from arts and culture were part of that group. The last report we had, that there were over 23,000 pre-registrants. All right, so what else are we doing? So we're also keeping an eye on legislation and tracking certain bills that relate. This is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. There are some bills, S2914, and its companion A4691. There's about putting $10 million in specific to arts and cultural organizations from CARES funding and through the EDA. And we have an action alert on the ArtPride Arts Action Center that asks you to contact your legislators and ask them to co-sponsor those bills. There's also another bill, 3061, Senate 3061, for $30 million for certain live entertainment venues. I believe that includes nonprofit and for-profit venues. And also an interesting A4706 requires Division of Travel and Tourism for Black Heritage Trail and establishes the New Jersey Black Cultural Heritage Commission, which is also very interesting. There are a couple other bills related to liability insurance. And during COVID, they are slow to move, but we'll be keeping an eye on those as well. So other news this week, the Arts Council announced the Women's Suffrage Mural Project Grant and a request for proposals. So I wanted to make sure that we highlighted that so that artists and arts organizations, you can spread the word to artists. This sounds like a really exciting project. There is, deadlines. There are deadlines coming up soon, so we want to make sure that you knew about this. And if you have questions, to contact Danielle Bursk at the State Arts Council. Behind me, Arts Vote. You can still get these graphics over at the Arts Action Fund. The page still exists on the ArtPride website. That's specific information regarding to New Jersey voting. What you should know also is that New Jersey Spotlight has a New Jersey ballot Dropbox map where the red arrow is at the top. You can enter your town and it will zoom in and highlight where drop boxes are in your location. I have to tell you, it's really interesting. The New Jersey Spotlight had an article this morning that, there are 3 drop boxes in a certain location in Newark where folks have to travel 3.5 miles from other wards to get to, whereas in my small town, there are 2 drop boxes. So, voter suppression is real everywhere. Before you vote, there are 2 things that you should check on. The Congressional Arts Report Card is at the artsactionfund.org. It's also at the ArtPride website. If you go to the top navigation bar, you'll see a spot specific for the Congressional Arts Report Card, which is the most updated one for 2020 to see how your congresspeople voted on arts issues. And also to go to artsednj.org to look at the 2020 New Jersey School Board Candidate Survey results. And folks are using that. Actually, the elections on a local level for school board are as contentious as all the other elections this year. Things that we should remember, I always include these. Keep Jersey Arts Alive is there. All the stats are there. Use them, please. And in making your case all the time, when share this with colleagues in your organization, share this with artists and friends. Also, the Jersey Arts websites, the Jersey Arts at Home and Jersey Arts Live. There's plenty of stuff going on, both at home and live. And so, please consult those for your for opportunities. Their next webinar is coming up, not all the way up until November 20th. It will be not in the morning. It'll be at 1 p.m. in the afternoon with TRG Arts. And it will be, TRG Arts has this new COVID-19 sector benchmark that could be really, really helpful to organizations as they try to understand better how the impact of COVID-19 is affecting their organizations. And I think that's it. I'll leave this slide up as we get ready for Halloween. Happy Halloween to everybody. Any questions, Adam?
Yeah, so we have actually a poll that Jim is going to put up. That was a question that came in. I'm just trying to make my computer work for who came in. But someone had asked, are you attempting to apply for the NJSCA Phase 3? And that person wished luck too. And I don't know, I can't scroll up on my computer here. My touchscreen computer doesn't want to let me.
Yeah, so this basically is, if you're pre-registered, will you be applying, right?
Right. It was from Diane Roberts. And we also had some questions that came up about captioning for these webinars. So we're going to make sure we put that in place for moving forward. That was a good point that a few people brought to our attention. And we're going to make this easy, but as long as I can. Yeah. So Carol Kronheim, who's on our board of trustees. Hi, Carol. Carol wanted to remind everyone to light up your house or business in purple, yellow, and white in honor of the 100th anniversary between now and Election Day of NJ Women Vote 100, which is a coalition of more than 70 organizations led by the Jersey's Historical Commission and the Alice Paul Institute.
So Jim, can you show us the response to the poll? Oh, great, that's good. 48%, so 13 organizations.
It's about 13 organizations so far, so we appreciate that. Diane says it was challenging and she just submitted.
It's not an easy application or pre-application process. Yeah, it's.
All right.
All right, is that it?
That is it. Making it easy, not taking up too much of anybody's time today. You know, if we need a lot of your time, we will take it. If we can get you out of here quick and on to the rest of your day, we'll do that as well. But just remember that we are always here, ArtPride is, so feel free to reach out to me or Anne-Marie or any of the staff if you need anything. And we will see you back here next month. And in case you haven't heard enough, go vote. Tell your friends to go vote. Tell everybody to go vote. All right. Next webinar, November 20th, 1 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Take care.